Righto. Here's that translation. And deep dive, rewrite you were after Aussie style. Crikey, that was a fair dinkum big job. I reckon I built my dream home for under 500 grand. I'm from the business office. By the way, gave it the go-ahead here in New Zealand, and I took a year off work, true blue, to build my family home on a bloody tough section, one that nobody else wanted. So, from the get-go, every plan felt like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You know how it is? In this video, I'll show you the whole kit and caboodle. The entire building process from start to finish, including some pretty schmick time lapses. The Prime Minister of New Zealand chucked a 4-week nationwide lockdown on us. And we'll break down some of the key details of that carry-on too. I don't want to be one of those builders who rocks up to a place and still has 1,000 jobs left to do. Yeah? Jobs that I just put off forever. Stick around till the end of the video. We'll have a yarn about the full cost of this build. Everyone and their dog, every builder you could poke a stick at, came to have a squiz at this block and got scared off for one reason or another. Just standing on the section, you could feel it. We locked it in unconditional. 1,600 square meters of a nice little suburban upper hut, but fair dinkum. It was a tough site. Real early on, we were saying, this is the section nobody wanted, and the name stuck. There were a fair few issues with the site that I reckon had put a lot of blokes off the path. It was on a bit of a slope, for starters. Access was from a right-of-way, and there was a bloody tight dogleg right at the start. That right-of-way was also shared with 2 other houses behind the site. There were a few drainage easements running right through the guts of the site, which restricted where you could build even more. There was a set of power lines feeding the neighbor's house running right across the site, and those needed to be dropped and buried. And to top it all off, there was a protected tatara tree right at the top of the section, where we would have ideally put our garage. Bugger. So, downstairs, we're going to build a basement garage, which makes the most of the natural lay of the land, yeah? Next to that, we're going to build a studio. Then we're going to have the main house upstairs, all on one level. Upstairs will be a pretty normal 3-bedroom, 2 living area house. We really wanted to make the most of the way the section faced and capture that north-facing sun. We've got 2 large outdoor spaces, both north-facing. Both will get that midday sun right through to early evening. Yeah, that's what we're planning to build. And that's what came out of the initial concept phase with Prime Designs. We are also well and truly through the working drawings for building consent and all that jazz. We've been making decisions about the best way to put those drawings together, you know, to really make the build as smooth as pos. Day just arrived at the section with the boys. My very first job. Joy to the world. I get to mow the bloody lawns because it's been sitting there empty for years and years and years. I had the lawn mower on the longest setting, and I didn't have a catcher on it, but it was going pretty good. Got to this last little bit where there's a bank going two ways, was pushing up, slipped, and my foot went right under and made the classic noise that you hear when you run over a stick or a twig. And the pain was immediate, excruciating, fair dinkum. Hang on a sec. Can't rule out a broken bone under an open wound. And you always have to be a bit careful with that. So I've asked the orthopedic registrar to come and have a look at it. They'll suss it out. Yeah, I had shoes on. They were actually trail running shoes. Most crazy thing is that right on the toe that got cut, it says toe protect. Had to have surgery. They were literally picking out shoe and grass out of the knuckle of my toe. Got stitched up and then had to spend 4 weeks in a moon boot off my feet. Pretty rough start, I tell you. Hoping that this wasn't going to be a bad omen for the entire job. You know, even though I've been through this quite a few times now, I still found myself surprised at how long things take and how many things you have to line up. And also how many decisions you need to make so early on before you can even see or touch anything on site. You're dissing down to some pretty fine details about the product you're going to use, how it's going to look, and you have to get that all on the plans. We forgot about lead times with people like engineers and pre-nailers, and how a couple of days delay here just has a flow-on effect. The plans are ready to go in. Look at this stack of paper. For every single consent that you submit, you have to include probably about 6 trees worth. Lovely, eh? So, you probably don't need anything else? Is all there? Yep. Just all that, and I'll get that through to the team. Cool. Thanks. The digger's here. What I've been setting up here is called a story rod. When you're working with slopes and wide sites, it's good to set up a board and mark your heights, yeah? And obviously double, triple check it. There's a laser over there, and now I can go around and shoot some heights. Here in the earthworks plan, you can see where we have to do our basement garage cut level at 70, 675, and our upstairs cut in the back corner here, we need to do it 72. It also shows you the batters we're cutting on these. You can also see here the drip line of protected trees. And this was a no-go zone throughout the build. I started setting the house out this week. And mate, it is the hardest set out I have done. There is not a single straight boundary to work off. The profile over in this corner is 3 meters out of the ground. And there's way too many corners on the house. Every 1,200 millimeters or 4 feet, I am marking one of these. And that's where I've got to dig a hole for the retaining post. One of the things that got picked up really early on was that this was an old gully that a bunch of fill had got pushed into. In some instances, good ground was 4 meters down. We worked with the engineer, and we came up with a plan where we decided to drill 450 millimeter holes, go all the way down to good ground, then fill those with concrete, and then put a standard house piling system on top. top of that, 57 holes. 57 holes I've had a drill on the side. Check out this. This bar is 4 meters long. The earthworks are officially finished. And now we can start the preparations for the foundation. I am absolutely shattered, mate. It's been a couple of long days, and my body is not used to it. Another week on site, a successful week. I've passed 2 inspections. I've passed my siting inspections, and I have passed my first engineer's inspection. So he was happy with the depth of the holes that we've drilled, and we are good to start our foundation works. Because of the nature of the site, the slopes, and the style of house we're building, we opted for a timber subfloor. However, we did pour a concrete slab for the garage. Here we are getting piles ready. These piles, and I'm sitting on a stack of timber. First delivery. It's a windy Monday morning here on site. I absolutely hated working in the rain when I was an apprentice. And now I'm out here slobbing away. It was wet. It was pouring down, but we had these 50 holes, and they were drilled, and I had to make a call on whether to pour them or not. It's crazy when you're an apprentice and you're like, oh, the rain, you can't be bothered. And then when it's your own site and you're involved, you somehow just get out here and do it. The rain just makes things so hard. It just makes like a normal job literally 3 times harder. Even at the end of the day, had to like empty my toolbox, empty my tools, dry them all out. That wasn't fun either. It's just kind of like it's not over when you get home. Every plan, it seems to be 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And I haven't encountered that for a long time. But then I've got to remind myself that this is not just your like typical flat subdivision. Just bang it up. It is a complicated site. It's a complicated design. And it's going to take a bit of thinking. As soon as all 57 holes were drilled and filled, we were able to crack on with building the concrete garage foundations. So we're boxing up the garage slab. That means that we create a hard surface for the concrete finish to. We're down over here, down in there. It was about 60 square meters. And it was a traditional 36-04 slab with a footing around the perimeter. Had a bunch of piles in the footing. And had 4 piles in the middle of the garage slab to take any car loading or anything else you're doing in the garage. Yesterday was just one of those insane days where everything right from the start went wrong. I hired a compactor and then went to pull the start, and the starter cord was broken. So that was an hour of wasted time going getting a new one. Then I was back in the trailer at the house where I'm staying and clipped the neighbor's letterbox. So spent another hour fixing that. And then we went to start the steel last night and realized that they had sent all the wrong steel. The 66 square meter slab passed 2 inspections yesterday, and we are now good to pour concrete. So, all things considered, The fact that we only got our consent 2 weeks ago and we're about to pour concrete is a massive achievement and a big milestone for the site. It means that we're going to have a hard finished surface to work off, and the build will start to get out of the ground. And that's where you start to get out of the unknown territory and into the known. One of the unexpected joys of logging my build was the factory tours that popped up along the way. One of the ones I remember the most is the Priel visit. So we made the trip out to the Kapiti Coast to see how they were fabricated off-site. You can look at the whole house in 3D, right? Well, that's the whole thing there. Yep, and I can put the trusses on for you. Even looking at like what the detailer did and how he gets it into the computer program. And the fact that we can turn the house around in every which angle and look at every stud, dang, and block. Definitely has given me more of an appreciation for what goes into those sets of frames that turn up the site. This is the subfloor framing for what's going to be a little 20-meter studio hanging off the front of our house as we're building the lower-level frames. We needed to install a big steel beam over the middle of the garage. The reason for this is that the mid-floor was made with timber joists, and they couldn't span the full 7 meters that the garage was. So we put the steel beam in the middle, and then we run our joists into that, and that takes all of that mid-floor load and sends it to the edge of the building and then down to the foundation. Just got a phone call to say the steel beam for our garage is ready. We could probably lift this beam if we really tried. I mean, it's only 150 kilograms, but the truck was coming past, and IDM was more than willing to help. Cheers, IDM, really appreciate it. It's in. The steel beam is in. That literally took less than 5 minutes. It would have taken us so much longer if we were trying to manhandle ourselves. Thanks again, IDM. Cheers. So, steel beams in, and we can now crack on with the rest of our beers and joists on the upstairs floor. And the last step to complete is flooring sheets. I'm standing on the final floor for the house. With only a couple days before Christmas, we got the floor finished. An amazing milestone considering that we only started building 9 weeks ago, and we've had our fair share of challenges. So, what I'm building here is a timber frame building, and here in New Zealand that is the most common way to build, and that's for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it is because we are a small island nation that has a plethora of sustainable forests growing here specifically for construction. The other thing is that New Zealand is reasonably earthquake prone, and timber frame buildings stand up to earthquakes really well. Also, we don't have a termite problem here. And we really don't have that many houses catching fire and burning down the way they used to in the early 1900s. Our timber is also treated against fungal decay and rot, and that's why our internal framing timber sometimes looks pink. Frames are up, nets are in, scaffolding is done. We can now crack on with the roof framing. We have 2 types of roofs here. We have an 8-degree rafter roof at the front and a 5-degree truss roof at the back. This is the roofing iron due to go on tomorrow. These are called purlins here. These here are called trusses over there. You can see the skylight box we've had to form. This is our hallway. And you can see there that will be one of the skylights that we are installing, and that will actually showcase our protected tree. That is the front roof over the lounge. There's another tree that we're not allowed to touch, but looks pretty amazing. Another massive milestone ticked off in the building. A huge amount of work dealing with the odd shape of the building because of the easements and because of the weird shape of the section. I counted up the other day. It has 18 corners on the exterior, and each corner has so much more work. Like literally. I reckon every corner adds another couple of days of work that wouldn't be there if you just had this, normal box-shaped house. Here in New Zealand, most roofs are corrugated iron. This one here is a profile called MC700. It is a trapezoidal product. You can see here the roof detail is a mix of areas with overhangs, especially around openings, and no eaves where the cladding goes all the way up to the roof line. We've gone from earthworks to slab to frames up roof trusses, and now we have a roof. Once we got the roof on, we could crack on with RB board. On this job here, we use a Hardy's board, 5mm product called Home RB. It's basically like a solid skin around the whole building. It's like a first cladding. Big milestone at the sections nobody wanted. Just about to cut my last sheet of RAB. Here's the building all wrapped up. In the lounge, I'll show you there's a sliding door. The architect was up here on the weekend, and we all decided that it would be better to move it a meter to the right to get more of the view of the hill. Pretty much I'm going to spend the morning unpicking some of the work we did last week and putting it back together. Usually reaching lockup is a massive and exciting milestone. This time has been a little bit different, however. The last few days have been a mad, frantic rush to get everything in place to close down and walk away. From 11:59 p.m. tonight, we will close our border to any non-residents and citizens attempting to travel here. As most of you know, on Monday afternoon, the Prime Minister of New Zealand announced a 4-week nationwide shutdown. And so, pretty much 1:30, everything that I had organized on this build went out the window, and we went into closed down mode. I remember the week before lockdown. It was progressively getting worse, and we were trying to stack up all the materials and all the orders we could carry the project on for the unknown future. Now that we have to walk away from this build and the timeline is super unknown, I'm so glad that I made the decision to install Redboard. It means that our house is fully weather tight, and this stuff can stand up to 180 days in the weather. I'm pretty confident I can get the cladding on before then. Obviously, I didn't know how long lockdown was going to take. That first they announced it for 4 weeks, that ended up stretching out to 6. And then we were able to go back to work with a really limited capacity. Lockdown was definitely a bit of a shock. What else is a shock? That only 22% of viewers subscribed. what are the other 78% you up to? Go ahead, click subscribe. It really does help us out. Morning, first day back to work. Decided to ride the bike up today. Won this car on site. Planning to get the weatherboard on and get the house fully closed in. We use a mix of linear, oblique, skinny, wide pattern and a timber cladding from a sustainable forest down south. Just about to head home. Very long day on site. Finish this wall here, and this wall here. And so, tomorrow we're going to move around the back and start cleaning over there. This wall here is already finished and painted. Spouting on doors in. We got to have a light either side of the door, an up-down light. And then we got those screws there. We pre-bolted for the deck. Painted a few walls over the weekend. This is what it's going to start looking like. Pretty happy with how it's coming up. A few more things to do on this wall before we can finish that off. And we'll be dropping this care hold soon. They will be exciting. The timber weatherboard was laid horizontally and had a brushed finish. The sheen on this combined with the dark look of the linear oblique really made the house pop, considering it was surrounded by so much greenery. We had a kitchen measure up on site really early on. We identified that the U-shaped peninsula didn't work, and we want an island bench that we could walk the entire way around. So mocked that up on site. Came up with some ideas to really elevate the space, but more importantly make it functional. That's essentially what you could sort of look at AB here, just a plain draw underneath. And here you got like a magic corner or something, so that PS out. Yo, so I'm just on site with literature. Cool kit, how's it going? We just done a prep pipe here for a heat pump. We're going for an 8 kW MIP electric up there. Stair have arrived. A little bit more work to do. Here it is. So good to have a set of steers in. This is going to be our big front door unit here. So the door is 2 meters high. And then we have a big pane of glass above it, as well as a skylight in the entranceway. Here today's exciting job, super exciting. We get to install a Huss loader beam. We use a fiberglass product called Pink Bats, and I installed this myself. In my experience building homes, one of the best bang for buck upgrades you can include early on is insulation. And it really does make a difference to the comfort of the house you're living in. Today we have the beginning of another milestone. We have another delivery arriving in about 2 hours. Now we can line the walls with jib plastic. For this job here, I got an 8 crew for 2 reasons. I was busy continuing to work on other areas of the house, and they just smashed it out. Getting the jib on the walls is one of those immensely satisfying stages of the build. It's where it turns from this timber framing that you've been looking at for months to all of a sudden there's a wall that you can touch. I've got the plaster arriving tomorrow morning, Monday, and I didn't want to lose that slot. So I worked 6 days and 2 nights to get this house ready for plaster to arrive. This is our lounge over here. This is our kitchen here. So this room here will be the second lounge. We have paint on the walls, doors, skirtings, auras. Painters are just finishing up now, and we will have reached another milestone on the section nobody wanted. We are dropping the scaffold, and of course the day we plan to do this, it starts to rain. Painting is all complete, and the Sparkies have finished a lot of their work. So the very next step is hard flooring. So that includes the wooden overlay that we have purchased, and it also includes tiles. There's 6 of us on site, and we're going hard installing tiles and flooring. We have 900 meters of this beach overlay to go down. I love being a carpenter. I love timber. I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. So it was a natural choice for me to do my interior floor with timber. However, I didn't realize it was going to take me 200 hours. We got tiles. After months of toiling away, we're finally at the stage where this house is starting to come together. Light switches, you can turn them around. An angle, then we want them pretty cool. It's Tuesday afternoon, and we are in the steel well today, putting on the white faces. We put the kitchen cabinets in, and we measure up our stone bench. It's all happening today. We got the digger driver, got a couple of builders inside, got some boys downstairs doing a deck. Everything that you've been planning working towards is starting to come together. A car goes here. Make sure you use the right colors to look in. Music. Yeah, ripper cut. Music. Sure, music. I reckon I don't want to be one of those blokes that moves into a place and still has 1,000 jobs they just put off forever. On top of all this, a fireplace is really important to me. It doesn't feel like home if it hasn't got one. Righto, Cobber, let me tell you, getting this yarn ready for you was a real blue. Thought I'd never see the end of it. Anyways, I reckon I've managed to build my dream home for under $500,000 reduce. And just so you know, I work in the business office, so I know a thing or two about keeping things on budget. I gave the whole project a thumbs up right here in New Zealand, and I even took a year off work. Fair dinkum I did, to build my family home on this section of land that was a proper mongrel. No one else wanted to touch it with a barge pole. So, right from the word go, every plan felt like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You know how it is? It's enough to make you want to chuckle wobbly. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the whole shebang, from go to woe. You'll see the entire building process. And I've even chucked in some ripper time lapses to make it look schmick, of course. Then the Prime Minister of New Zealand had to go and throw a spanner in the works by slapping a 4-week nationwide lockdown on us. We'll have a bit of a chin wag about that whole carry-on as well, and how it affected everything. I'm not about to be one of those dodgy builders who rocks up to a place and still has 1,000 little jobs left to do yet. You know, those jobs that just get put off forever and a day. Nah, not me. So, stick around to the end of the video, and we'll have a proper yarn about the full cost of build. Break it all down for you. You wouldn't believe how many blokes, every Tom, Dick, and Harry builder you could poke a stick at, can't have a squiz at this block and got scared off. Too hard basket, they reckon. Just standing on this section, you could feel the bad juju. But we locked in unconditional 1,600 square meters in a pretty bonzy little suburb in Upper Hutt. But fair dinkum, it was a bloody tough site. Right from the start we were saying, this is the section nobody wanted, and wouldn't you know it, the name just stuck like glue. There were a fair few problems with the site that I reckon had scared off a lot of potential buyers in the past. It was on a bit of a slope for a start. Access was via right of way, and there was a bloody tight dog leg right at the entrance. And that right of way shared with two other houses behind the site. Talk about a squeeze. Then there were a few drainage easements running right through the guts of the block, which put even more restrictions on where we could build. And to make matters even worse, there was a set of power lines feeding the neighbor's house running right across the middle of everything. Those had to be dropped and buried, which cost a pretty penny. And to top it all off, the cherry on the cake, there was a protected tatara tree right at the top of the section, smack bang where we would have ideally put our garage. Talk about a bug. So the plan is downstairs. We're going to build a basement garage, which takes advantage of the natural lay of the land, yeah? We'll try to work with the terrain rather than against it. Next to that, we're going to build a studio. Then we're going to have the main house upstairs, all on one level. Keep it simple. Upstairs will be a pretty stock standard 3-bedroom, 2 living area house. Not too fancy, just comfortable and functional. We really want to make the most of the way the section face. Try and capture that beautiful north-facing sun. We got 2 large outdoor spaces, both north-facing. So both of those areas will get that gorgeous midday sun right through till the early evening. Yeah, that's the grand plan. And that's what we came up with in the initial concept phase with Prime Design. They're a clever bunch. Those guys were also well and truly through the working drawings for building consent and all that jazz. Honestly, the paperwork alone could fill a skip. We've been making some pretty crucial decisions about the best way to put those drawings together. You know, to really grease the wheels and make the build as smooth as possible. That's the aim of the game. Anyway, today, just arrived at the section of boys. My very first job. Oh, joy to the world. I get to mow the bloody lawns. The things you do when it's your own place. The reason I'm stuck doing the lawns is because it's been sitting there empty for years and years and years. Neglected. I had the lawnmower set on the longest setting, and I didn't have a catcher on it. Just blasted everywhere. But it was going pretty good, actually, until I got to this last little bit where there's a bank going I was pushing up, lost my footing, slipped, and my foot went right under. Made that classic, sickening noise that you hear when you run over a stick or a twig. Except this wasn't a twig. And the pain, immediate, excruciating, fair dinkum. It was a shocker. Hang on a sec. Gotta get this checked out. Can't rule out a broken bone under an open wound. And you always have to be extra careful with that kind of thing. So, I've asked the orthopedic registrar to come and have a bit of squiz at it, assess the damage. He'll suss it out, tell me what's what. Yeah, I definitely had shoes on. They were actually trail running shoes. Good quality ones. The most unbelievable thing is that right on the toe that got cut, it says toe protect. Talk about irony. Turns out I had to have surgery. The surgeons were literally picking bits of shoe and grass out of the knuckle of my toe, all stitched up. I then had to spend 4 weeks hobbling around in a moon boot. Couldn't put any weight on it. Crikey, what a rough start, I tell you. I was really hoping that this wasn't going to be a bad omen, a sign of things to come for the entire job. You know, even though I've been through this building caper quite a few times now, I still found myself surprised at how long everything takes, and how many different things you have to line up just to get the ball rolling. And also, the sheer number of decisions you need to make so early on before you can even see or touch anything on site. You're descending down to some pretty fine details about the products you're going to use, what's all going to look like, the color scheme, everything. And you have to get all of that down on the plans, set in stone. We totally forgot about the lead times of people like the structural engineers and the pre-nailers, and how even a couple of days delay here and there can have a flow-on effect down the line, putting the whole project behind schedule. The plans are finally ready to go in for consent. Have a look at this ridiculous stack of paper. For every single consent application that you submit, you have to include enough paper to kill probably about 6 trees. Isn't that just lovely, eh? All that for a green bill. So, you probably don't need anything else from me, then? Is everything there? Yep, that's all there. Thank you very much. I'll get that straight through the team. Cool. Thanks heaps. The digger's finally here. Time to get this show on the road. What I've been setting up here is called a story rod. When you're working with sections on slopes and with wide sites like this one, it's a good idea to set up a board and clearly mark your heights on it. Yeah? That way, you know where you stand. And obviously, you need to double, triple check it just to make sure everything's spot on. Accuracy is key. There's a laser over there set up on its tripod. And now I can go around the site and shoot some heights. See where we're at. Here in the earthworks plan. You can see exactly where we have to do our basement garage cut level at 675 meters. And our upstairs cut in the back corner here, which we need to do at 72. 925 meters. The plans also show you the batters that we're putting on these cuts. It's all very technical, but crucial to get right. You can also see here the drip line of that protected territory. And this was a complete no-go zone throughout the entire build. We couldn't go anywhere near it. I started setting the house out this week. And mate, I gotta tell you, it is without a doubt the hardest set out I have ever done in my life. There is not a single straight boundary to work off. Talk about a challenge. The profile over this corner is a whopping 3 meters out of ground, and there are way too many corners on the house. Makes everything so much more complicated. Every 1,200 millimeters or 4 feet, I am marking one of these points, and that's where I've got to dig a hole for retaining posts. One of the things that we picked up on really early on in the process was that this was actually an old gully that a whole bunch of fill had been pushed into over the years, which meant that in some instances, good, solid ground was 4 meters down. That's a long way. So we worked closely with the engineer, put our heads together, and we came up with a pretty clever plan where we decided to drill 450 millimeter holes, go all the way down to the good ground, right down to bedrock, and fill those holes completely with concrete. And then we put a standard house piling system on top of that. 57 holes. Can you believe it? 57 holes I've had to drill on this bloody side. Check this out. This steel reinforcing bar is 4 meters long. That's how deep we're going. The earthworks are officially finished, completed, done and dusted. And now we can finally start the preparations for laying the foundations. I am absolutely shattered, knackered, worn out, mate. It's been a couple of bloody long days. And my body is just not used to all this physical labor anymore. Getting old, I suppose. Another week on site. Another successful week. Thankfully, I've managed to pass 2 pretty crucial inspections. I passed my siting inspections, and I have also passed my first engineer's inspection. So, the engineer was happy with the depth of all the holes that we've drilled, and he gave us the all clear to start all the foundation works. Phew! Because of the challenging nature of the site, all the slopes and angles, and the overall style of the house we're building, we opted for a timber subfloor, seemed the best and most practical solution. However, we did decide to pour a concrete slab for garage, just for extra stability. Here we are, getting the piles all ready to go. These piles are vital to the whole thing. And here I am, sitting on a huge stack of timber, our first delivery of wood. It's a windy Monday morning here on site, blowing a gale, actually. I absolutely hated working in the rain when I was just an apprentice. And now here I am, the boss, out here slobbing away in the wet. Life's funny, eh? It was wet. It was absolutely pouring down buckets of it. But we had these 50 holes already drilled and ready to go. And I had to make a judgment call on whether to pour the concrete or not. If I didn't do it, we'd be set back days. It's crazy. When you're an apprentice, you're just like, oh, the rain. I can't be bothered. Can't wait to get inside. And then when it's your own site, your own project, and you're really involved, you somehow just get out here and do it, no matter what the weather throws at you. The rain just makes everything so much harder. It literally makes what would normally be a pretty standard job about 3 times harder, at least. Even at the end of the day, I had to completely empty my toolbox, take all my tools out, dry them all out one by one. That wasn't fun either. You know, it's just kind of like the work's not really over when you get home. It drags on and on. Every plan, it seems, is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I haven't encountered that kind of frustration for a long time. But then I've got to remind myself that this isn't just your typical flat, easy subdivision where you can just bang up a house in no time at all. This is a complicated site. It's a complicated design. And it's all going to take a bit of careful thinking and a whole lot of hard yakka. As soon as all 57 holes were drilled, inspected, and then filled with concrete, we were able to crack on with building the concrete garage foundations. So that's what we're doing now, boxing up the garage slab. What that means is that we're creating a nice, hard surface, a mold for the concrete to be finished to. We're down over here, down in there, working away. The garage slab is roughly about 60 square meters in total. And it's a traditional 3604 slab with a footing. Gave me the experience to draw on for the next one. I took different lessons from different sites and combined them to sort out the plans. Once the plans are sorted, it's just like building a Lego set. You just have to follow the instructions. So you have to have the physical skills to be a builder, which you get from working on building sites. But you also have to have the experience and knowledge. And that comes from doing a variety of different projects. You need to have the capacity, the brain power. A project like this needs a massive amount of decision making. A lot of lying in bed at night, thinking, right, do I make the cut here or here? And how do I join that to this? To have that capacity, I took a year off work. It wasn't just about being physically on site to build. It was about mentally making this project my only focus and doing it to the best of my ability. Lastly, you need the financial resources to bankroll something like this. I bought my first house when I was 19. It was a rental, and I never lived in it. I held on to it all through my 20s while I was traveling. Then, when my son was 2, in 2018, we bought a family home. I was running a building company and getting better at it, taking on bigger deals, and I'd done a few of my own spec builds. We sold everything, put the cash in the bank account, and used that cash to build this house. That little pot of gold was about $800,000. That was my life savings at the time. No bank loans. That was my absolute limit to build this house. Before we dive into the figure for the build, a couple of quick disclaimers. Firstly, this was back in 2019, pre-COVID prices. At the time, build rates were around $2,500 to $3,000 a square meter. That includes the builder's time management and profit margin. Obviously, I was able to save a chunk of that myself. The second thing is that I was already in the industry and had a good reputation with suppliers. And I was starting this YouTube channel. So, using the channel and my rep, I managed to negotiate some really good deals on materials. Obviously, there are heaps of items that go into a full breakdown. Today, we're just going to do a quick run through some of the main costs. We spent $265,000 on a section, and I put $30,000 aside to fix the drainage and power issues. I reckon I did that all up for about $15,000 and fixed all the section's problems. So, let's say we're all in, including lawyers' fees and all that stuff, for about $285,000. Now, that's a fair bit of dosh, but back then a small 400 square meter section in central Auckland was going for about $400,000. So, for the bargain price of $285,000, I got a 1,600 square meter section in a pretty flash suburb, which I then needed to get plans drawn up for. Plans, design fees, engineers' fees, council fees. All up, that came to about $25,000. Again, I was leaning on as many people as I could get approved. Excavation was $6,000. Drilled piles were $8,000. And a 66 square meter slab cost $72,000. Mid-floor materials and labor, with a couple of blokes helping out, cost $24,000. Frames were $22,000. Spouting and roofing was $119,000. And building materials, including cladding, was $70,000. I got a deal from Hardee's on that. Stairs were $2,000. Insulation was $5,500. Pink Bats gave that all to me. The garage door was $22,000. Windows were $21,000. Electrical was $22,000. Plumbing was $15,500. Gas Infinity and gas-fired downstairs cost $2,000. Drainage cost $7,500. The heat pump cost $3,500. The duct system cost $2,500. The fire and the wetback cost $2,000. And the plastering inside was $6,500. We spent $2,000 to paint the outside ourselves and $12,500 to pay a painter to do the inside. The doors were $7,500. The kitchen was $20,000. The appliances were $6,000. $2,000 on carpet. $5,000 on tiles. $3,000 on shower glass. And the wooden flooring was $8,000, plus 200 hours of labor and $1,000 worth of glue. Bathroom fittings cost $10,000. Concrete driveways were $5,000. Landscaping planter box at the start was $6,000. The deck was $18,000. Blind were $2,000, and the wardrobes were $3,000. The steel portal for the deck cost $2,000, and the steel beam for the garage cost $800. Bearing in mind that includes all the landscaping work that carried on afterwards, probably another $50,000 of materials again, with all my time for free. All up at the start, I had just under $800,000, 265 for the section, around $465 to build, and everything else. The final product was valued in the mid-ones, and I was stoked with it. The process of building a house from start to finish for yourself is so rewarding, so taxing. It's such a big journey, but it's really kicked off this YouTube channel, kicked off my building company, and I'm about to do it all over again on a whole new section. I'll give you a sneak peek of that right now. Check out that build up there. Nestled into the hill and surrounded by Remu and Manuka, it's got an amazing view of the Hutt Valley and the terrariums. We're going to do a weekly on-site vlog explaining the process. On top of that, we'll include a monthly deep dive with a key partner. For example, we'll visit the factory to see where the products are made and then document coming to site and being installed in our beautiful home. We'll also do a weekly reel on TikTok, highlighting a collab with one of our partners. And we'll continue to post photos and stories to our Instagram. Yo, you've made it all the way to the end. And now this is your special message just for you. Because you got here first, pal. Thanks so much. It's viewers like you that boost our numbers and keep us making stuff like this. I just want to say that I love what I get to do. I love building houses. I love filming it. And I love showing you. It's a truly rewarding process. And I really encourage you, you're obviously into this kind of thing, to find a way to make your dream, your project come to life. Take that huge big thing and break it down into little bite-sized chunks. Ask yourself, how can I do X, Y, Z? How can I get the money? How can I solve the problems on this site? How can I bring this vision to reality? The cool thing is, your brain is so smart. And when you ask it a question while you're going about your day, while you're driving, while you're working, while you're digging holes, your brain is working away. All of a sudden you have this aha moment. And your mind will be like, this is how you do it. And the next thing you do, the moment your brain says, do this, you gotta write it down, and then you gotta get in there and give it a go. Obviously, day one of this site, I cut my foot. It's a big step backwards. Any big project I've done is always 5 steps forward, 1 step back. Don't get disheartened when you take that first step forward and you get knocked back straight away, like I did with the lawnmower on day 1. You gotta keep showing up, keep stepping forward. A house like this, any building project, is an accumulation of 1,000 little steps. Remember, 1,000 little steps adds up to a massive thing. Take the first step today to tell everyone about this video, and comment below. You are awesome! Music intros, Rido top-notch snip that. Music fades, quiet now. Music gave us the experience I needed to crack on to the next one. No worries, I'd be nicking ideas from all over the shop and cobbling them together to net out the plans. Once you got the plan sorted, it's dead easy, like building a Lego set. Just follow the instructions, mate. So, you need the hands-on skills of the builder, which you get from grafting on building sites. But you also need the know-how and the smarts that comes from mucking about on different kind of projects. You've got to have the capacity, the brain power. A project like this means making a shed load of decisions, lie in bed at night thinking, right, do I make the cut here or there? And how do I join that up to this? To have that kind of focus, I took a year off work and made that project my only focus and gave it everything I had. Last but not least, you gotta have the dosh to make something like this happen. I bought my first house when I was 19. It was a rental, and I never actually lived in it, but I hung on to it all through my 20s while I was gallivanting around. Then, when my son was 2, we bought a family home in 2018. I was running a building company, getting better and better and doing more and more deals. And I'd done a few developments myself. We sold a lot and bunged the cash into a bank account, and then used that money to build this house. That little pile of gold was about $810,000 dues. That was my life savings at the time, and with no bank loans, that was the absolute limit to build this house. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the build costs, here are a couple of quick heads-ups. Firstly, this was back in 2019, before COVID, and back then, building rates were roughly between $2.5 and $3 grand a square meter. Obviously, that covers the builder's time, management costs, and their cut. I was able to save a fair bit of coin by doing a lot of the work myself. Secondly, I was already in the game, had a solid rep with heaps of suppliers, and was kicking off this YouTube channel. So, by using the channel in my good name, I could haggle some bonds deals on materials. There are a stack of individual things that go into a full rundown. But today we're going to have a squiz at some of the main costs. We splashed out $265,000 on the block, and I set aside another $30,000 to sort out the drainage and power dramas. I reckon I got it all done for about $15,000, which fixed all the sections problems. So, all up, including the lawyer's fees and all that jazz, we were looking at around $285,000. Now, that's a fair whack of money. But back then, a dinky 400 square meter block in central Auckland was going for about $400,000. So, for the bargain price of $285,000, I got a 1,600 square meter block in a ripper suburb, which then needed plans. The plans, including the design fees, engineers' fees, and council fees, came to around $25,000. Again, I leaned on as many contacts as possible to get it through. Excavation was $6,000. Drill piles were $8,000, and a 66 square meter slab cost $72,000. The mid-floor materials and the labor, I got a couple blokes in to lend a hand, came to $24,000. The framing was $22,000. The spouting and roofing was $119,000. And the building materials, including the cladding, were $70,000. I managed to get a good deal from Hardee's on that. The stairs were $2,000. The insulation was $5,500. But Pink Bats gave it all to me. Good on him. The garage door was $22,000. The windows were $21,000. The electrical work was $22,000. And the plumbing came to $155,000. The gas infinity system and the gas fireplace downstairs cost $2,000. Drainage was $72,000. The heat pump was $32,000. And the duct system cost $22,000. The fire and the wetback cost $5,200. The plastering inside was $6,500. We spent $1,200 painting the outside ourselves, and $12,000 paying a painter to do the inside. The doors cost $7,000. The kitchen was $20,000. The appliances were $6,000. The carpet was $7,200. The tiles were $7,500. And the shower glass was $2,300. The wooden flooring was $8,000, plus 200 hours of graft and $1,000 for glue. The bathroom fittings were $10,000. The concrete driveway was $7,500, and the landscaping planter box we built at the start cost $6,000. The deck was $18,000. The blinds were $2,000, and the wardrobes were $3,000. The steel portal for the deck cost $2,000. And the steel beam for the garage cost $800. Keep in mind that covered all the extra landscaping work that went on afterwards, which was probably another $50,000 worth of materials, and all my time was free. In total, at the start I had just under $800,000. $265,000 for live, and around $465,000 for the building and everything else. The finished product was valued in the mid-ones, and I was stoked as with that. The whole shebang of building a house from scratch by yourself is so satisfying, so bloody tiring, and such a massive journey. It's also really given this YouTube channel a kickstart, got my building company humming, and now I'm about to do it all again on a brand new block. I'll give you a sneak peek of that right now. Check out that build up there. It's tucked into the hill, surrounded by Rimu and Manuka trees, and it's got a cracker view of the Hutt Valley and the Toreros. We're going to do a weekly vlog on-site explaining what's going on. We'll also do a monthly deep dive with a key partner. For example, heading to the factory to see where the product are made and showing them tinting up on site and getting installed in our beautiful home. We'll also post a weekly reel on TikTok showing off a yarn with one of our partners. And we'll keep chucking up photos and stories on Instagram. You made it all the way to the end. So here's a special message just for you. Because you're the first one here. Mate, cheers heaps. It's legends like you that boost our numbers and keep us making stuff like this. I just want to say that I love what I do. I love building houses. I love filming. And I love showing it to you. It's a proper, rewarding thing to do. So I'd really encourage you, if you're into this kind of stuff, to suss out a way to make your dream, your project, come to life. Take this massive, scary thing and chop it up into little, easy bits. Ask yourself, how can I do this for that? How can I find the dough? How can I fix the dramas on this site? How can I make this idea a real thing? Thing is, your brain is bloody clever. And when you ask it a question, why you spend all your day driving, working, digging holes, your brain is ticking away, and all of a sudden you'll have a bright idea. And your brain will go, this is how you do it. As soon as your brain goes, do this, you've got to write it down, get in there, and give it a crack. Fair dinkum. On day one of this site, I sliced my foot open, which was a step backwards. But any big project I've done is always 5 steps forward, then 1 step back. Don't get too down when you take that first step forward and get knocked straight back, like I did with the lawnmower on day one. You just gotta keep tinning up, keep moving forward. And remember that a house like this, any building job, is just heaps of little things added together.